59 Seconds because there's so much rubbish in the self-help industry, and it was starting to make me angry. So I'd go into a bookshop and look at the self-help shelf, not because I needed any, to make it quite clear, I'm perfectly happy, enriched, very positive life. But when I did look, you just see this advice, which is terrible, which as a psychologist you shouldn't be telling anyone. And I thought it'd be nice to set the record straight, so that's why I did it.
Fantastic. And I really liked your chapter on the motivational myths.
Yes.
In particular, there's a part where you talk about what does and doesn't work in terms of people reaching their goals. And specifically, there's you talk about how in one study, visualization, which is a really popular exercise right now, is perhaps not the most effective.
That would be one way of putting it. Another way would be that it's highly ineffective and dangerous. But there's only certain types of visualizations. This is the notion that if you want to motivate yourself, you should visualize your perfect self, so having achieved whatever it is that you want to achieve. It's a terrible idea. You get any of the studies into it. Pretty much every single one shows that engaging in that kind of fantasy and that kind of daydreaming means that in terms of motivation, it pretty much collapses because that fantasy, that daydream doesn't become reality quickly, and so people tend to become very demoralized. So if you do want to use visualization, you should visualize yourself doing the steps it takes to get to the goal, not the goal itself. So if you want to do well in exams, you visualize yourself revising, not being given a grade certificate. Now everyone should know that. It's been kicking around in psychology for years. It should be common knowledge, but it isn't. And that's the real kind of motivation of 59 Seconds.
And what's the real impact, do you think, of people who really buy into these myths, for example, of the visualization or of the idea that you should have a role model and put their pictures everywhere?
Well, the real danger is that if you try and fail, in some ways it's worse than not trying at all, because now you become hopeless, because we like to live with this idea that, I could change my behaviour, I could get a different job, I could change a relationship, if only I put my mind to it. So you have a sense of hope. Now, if you do put your mind to it, and because of this terrible advice you fail, then you become hopeless, you become fatalistic. There's nothing I can do. And at that point, you're in quite a dark place. So I don't buy into this notion of, self-help just being a kind of fun thing, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, you move on to the next one. I think to some extent it could be quite dangerous.
And actually, on that point of trying and failing, there was another point you made in that chapter, which was around the idea that one of the things you should do to reach your goals is actually tell other people about them. In my weekly emails, I was emailing out that point, and I got quite a lot of feedback with people showing me other studies that showed the opposite. I was just wondering if you could sort of talk to that a little bit.
Well, it depends how you do it, and it depends who you are. So, for example, in our research, women, it tends to work very well with them because their friends tend to be quite supportive. With guys, as soon as you say, this is what I'm trying to achieve, other guys then see that as a kind of red rag and think, well, we'll do everything we can to prevent you achieving that goal. So if you're trying to lose weight, they order big desserts at the end of the meal just to try and get you to feel particularly bad and break your resolve. So there are individual differences on it. It also depends how you tell the world, again, is it you just telling one friend or are you putting it on a blog? That's very different in terms of fear of failure. So I think there is some subtlety to all of these things, but I would stick with the notion that in general it's a pretty good thing to be doing.
Okay, that makes sense. So overall with the book, was there anything that surprised you as you were pulling it all together?
Sales have been unbelievably good, and that surprised me. I thought it'd crash and burn. No, of course I didn't, it's a joke. What surprised me most, I think the notion that change doesn't have to be that difficult. So that there are studies out there, in fact there's a large number of them when you look and put them all together, showing that you don't need to do a 6-month course in creativity to come up with a good idea. You don't need to get all these DVDs in order to motivate yourself. There are simple, quick and effective things. And again, that shouldn't be a surprise. It's been in psychology literature for years. The public should know it. You walk into a bookshop, that's what should be on the shelves. But it's not. That's the problem.